Good morning, Hacksters! It is my favorite time of the week. We have an interview with someone awesome. This week it is Jenny Plunkett, a user success engineer at Edge Impulse. How's it going, Jenny?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. Very excited. Yeah. So we've heard a ton about Edge Impulse recently. Could you tell us a little bit about what the company is and what your role is like?
Yeah, so I am a user success engineer at Edge Impulse, and Edge Impulse is essentially a software as a service for TinyML applications for IoT platforms or Linux devices. So it basically is you can upload all your data directly into the Edge Impulse Studio, train a model on that data without having to write any code, and then deploy a trained model onto your Edge device without having to do any machine learning code or even any embedded code if you use one of our officially supported boards like the Sony Spresense.
Yeah. Cool. So speaking of the Spresense, it is this board from Sony. Could you tell us a little bit about it? What's its deal?
Yeah, so the Spresense is a really low power, but high processing power microcontroller by Sony. It has a lot of integrated sensors on it and DSP code that optimizes the audio input or the image input from the camera. And it's a really powerful little device for IoT applications. So we recently launched support for the Spresense and its sensors on the Edge Impulse platform. So if you're using the accelerometer add-on or the camera add-on or the microphone add-on, you can directly deploy a model from the Edge Impulse Studio onto this device and start classifying images and audio data or keyword spotting, for example, directly on the edge on the Spresense without having to write any code. Or you can write code if you want in Arduino or C++, for example, with the Edge Impulse SDK.
Well, that's really cool that you don't have to write any code in order to get it up and running. That's ridiculous. How's that possible?
Well, so basically what we've done is our engineers have collaborated with the Sony team to integrate the drivers that are needed to access the sensors on the microcontroller, and we've integrated those drivers directly into our Edge Impulse SDK. So when you use the Spresense as a deployment option, it pulls in all the necessary code that you need in order to directly pull the raw data, process it with our DSP code, put it into the neural network, and pull out the prediction all on the device without, yeah.
That's so cool. What kinds of things have you used this to predict? Have you, what sorts of models have you built? Like, I know that you can do running water and things like that.
So yeah, we have a few main ones for audio and accelerometer and images. But I just did a webinar a couple weeks ago where we did just image classification models, and what I deployed to the Spresense in that webinar was a person detection model where I trained a data set on over 109,000 images on whether there's a person or not a person in the image. And so I trained that Edge Impulse and then I deployed it to the device. And on this little camera, if you point it at me, for example, there'll be a score that outputs to the serial terminal that says, yes, there is a person in this image, or no, there is not a person in this image. So that was one of the cool ones that we did. You can also do keyword spotting, or you can even analyze things like non-voice audio, like you said, the faucet detection if you're leaking. And you can also do motion detection, gesture detection with the accelerometer on board.
Ooh, I hadn't realized that.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So we are here today, partly because we have this webinar coming up called Supercharge Your Products, which you can find at Hackster.io/events right at the top here. And can you tell us a little bit about this webinar, what people are going to learn?
So we're just going to go through sort of end to end what it'll be like to create a data set for embedded machine learning, utilize that data set, get the features out of the data like accelerometer data or audio data, get those features out, pass them into the neural network and train on those features, and then deploy onto our device. So we're going to go end to end all the way through the studio and actually deploying onto the Spresense if you have it. And if you don't have it, most of our models can actually deploy it on your mobile phone as well. So you don't even need a microcontroller to join this webinar.
I've seen in your interface, you're able to often use your phone as an input to record data so that you don't have to use the same device to train. You can sort of train from anywhere, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And that seems to, especially sort of the fact that you can deploy them on your phone as well is a new thing that I didn't know about. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you can take data from any source. pretty much virtually any way you want. We're completely API driven. So if you have an existing, mobile app that you're collecting data from, you can integrate the Edge Impulse API that way too.
Yeah. So also, if you don't happen to have a Spresense on hand, you can also win one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know how to pick them. It might be random. It might be who asked the best questions. So show up and live, and we'll pick 3 winners.
Good stuff. And there's more information about the webinar here. So having done our plug, let's hear a little bit more about you. What is your background? How did you become a user success engineer?
So it's interesting. So going back into my past. In high school, I didn't have access to any computer science courses. My school it was kind of poor in that we didn't have the ability to pay for a computer science teacher. I graduated in 2013 from high school. So I didn't know anything about writing code other than what I learned from, making my own HTML templates for MySpace back in the day. So I was just really interested I liked math. I liked science. I thought programming would be a good fit for me. So I applied to go to electrical engineering school at UT Austin. And I got in, thankfully. Yeah. And I spent 5 years there doing a lot of courses related to a lot of IoT stuff, embedded engineering. And I graduated with a bachelor's in electrical engineering. And my primary sort of core is software engineering. So I did a lot of Java development and C++ development in college and in my first job at Arm. And I did both my internships there too. So I have a really heavy Arm background. Yeah.
That's rad. A little bit about, actually first, people can follow you specifically on Twitter. You've created a profile, and that's Jenny M. Plunkett. We'll put that link in the description for people who we didn't have that in the description before, but we'll put it in after, and you can also just go find it. So we've seen a bit about Sony and Edge Impulse, but you can find both of those on Hackster. On Hackster, you can also find a lot of different platforms, including Edge Impulse on Microbit, Edge Impulse on the Arduino Nano 33BLE Sense, and we've talked a little bit about those before. So what are the advantages of doing this with the Spresense specifically?
Well, the Spresense has a lot of built-in code on it that is optimized specifically for audio examples, that has a really high quality audio processing chip on it. So it could be used in really quite heavy industrial environments that need a high, quality sound source. So that's one of the things. And also it's one of the most heavy duty processing power microcontrollers that we have on Edge Impulse. It's got 8 cores on it. So it's a pretty intense microcontroller. But yeah, it's almost almost towards the Linux device side range of the amount it can do. But yeah, so it's just a really, really easy board to get started with. The Spresense website has a ton of really easy to follow tutorials and other ways that you can get started with the Spresense. So you can integrate Edge Impulse into whatever sensor you want to have, plugged into the board. And yeah, it's just a really great platform and really easy to work with. And it was really fun doing this integration with the Sony team.
Badass. Speaking of tutorials, you've got a bunch of blog posts on the Edge Impulse blog as well. So there's the announcement where you have a little getting started, how do I get started section. You've got a deep dive on the blog from Peter Ng. There is a bunch of documentation, of course. I love the way that your docs are laid out.
Thank you.
Did you do these?
So yeah, a lot of these doc pages are written by me and my team on the user success engineering team. So I made that video that you're scrolling past. But a lot of these pages are also developed by our CTO EON as well. So
right.
Mm-hmm. We both come from Arm Mbed, so a lot of our sort of roots are really making sure the developer experience is super high quality.
Yes.
Yeah, it's important. People don't want to use a product if they don't know how to get started.
Love to see it. And then you also have on your Spresense by Sony development board, all kinds of stuff. So plenty of rich material for people to get started with. I was really excited to hear you say just now that you that on the Spresense you have high quality sound, because a thing that I've noticed before is that you have to really tailor your model to the audio capabilities of the dev board that you're using. So for example, for the microbit, you have to use one bitrate, and for the nano 33 BLE sense, you have to use another bitrate. And you have to, like, fortunately, you make that pretty easy because you have this, data gathering, data acquisition section where you can choose what bitrate to record at, even if you're using your phone. So it'll just tell your phone, like, hey, and that process is so seamless. You just go to a specific website in your phone, and then you're automatically recording into this interface, which is it's just magic. And,
I love to hear that. I want it to be magic, because I don't like, making this as easy as possible is, going to really help everyone. Embedded ML is going to grow immensely if we just take the hurdle of simple data collection out.
Yeah. What do you see? What do you see as this being used for really good ways in the world?
We have a few different verticals that we focus on at Edge Impulse. We have human and animal sensing that we're looking at for conservation purposes, analyzing, if there's a certain type of bird in the wild. We actually did a project with a satellite board that detected if there's a certain bird call in the area, and then we can do conservation efforts that way. You could do asset tracking and predictive maintenance. So for asset tracking, we're looking at, we could help a company determine, is the package that they're trying to deliver to the customer remaining high quality? We can tell how many times it's fallen off of the pallet, for example, or if it's been twisted or turned. All of that can be determined with machine learning. And recently, one of my team members did a project on hard hat detection, where we're taking a camera on a microcontroller and analyzing images of a work site and seeing if all of the workers have their hard hats on.
Oh yeah, I could totally see that being used for masks as well, now that things are going up again.
For sure.
We've also done this collaboration in the past with the Elephant Edge, the smart elephant tracking collar for anti-poaching. I feel like I'm plugging so many things here, but also the fact is that we've just done a lot of work together with Hackster and Edge Impulse, so it's really cool to have you on here. But people can find out more about that and see, like, the winners on our contest page. Speaking of plugs, Sony having good stuff on their website. There's one more thing we want to talk about, which is we gotta talk about this Sony webinar. What's going on here?
So Arm Mbed, who was my close contact working on the Edge Impulse Spresense integration, she is leading a webinar on August 19th discussing their NetX operating system driver SDK for the Spresense. It's what they use primarily on their tutorial and documentation website to help people integrate their sensors on the Spresense and integrate it into their application code. So that'll be a really interesting webinar. Arm Mbed is great, so I recommend it.
Cool.
And it's free.
Heck yeah. So when you're doing your job, are you doing a lot of direct interaction with developers?
Yeah, so I wear many hats in my role at Edge Impulse. So one of them is sort of developer support. So I'm one of the people you'll see, hanging around on the Edge Impulse forum, answering questions, helping people debug their application code, helping people debug if they experience any issues in the studio, or if their model is just not performing the way they want it to. I'm one of those people that helps debug. And that also includes, generating tutorials and more documentation to even further the developer experience that we have with the Edge Impulse Studio. So that's just one of the many hats. I do a lot in this role, and it's super fun. It's my favorite job I've had so far. And I don't just say that because I'm working here, but I really enjoy it. Like Zach and EON, our CEO and CTO, are great. And the product is super fun to work with, and it's so easy. I'm always about, like, I don't really like writing code, even though I'm a software engineer and I have an electrical engineering degree. Like, I would rather just, copy and paste stuff. So this platform is just a dream for, making embedded ML available for the world.
Well, it seems like you're not alone in that, because you're in the popularity of Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
So, not that just yet. Being that you interact with people and help them, for example, figure out why their algorithms aren't necessarily working, why their models are might be having trouble, I've gotten a lot of help. And for example, figured out that part of my issues were that I wasn't doing the right ratio of like noise to signal, and like you actually have to like record noise and like other things. Obviously you know this, but like what are some of the most common things that you end up helping with people with, like if they're getting started, they might have challenges?
I think a lot of it in terms of developer support, and also during like pre-sales calls with customers, a lot of it is just determining, what type of data do you need to collect in order to accomplish the goal. Like a lot of people do have data they've already collected. So it's a combination of what new data do I need to collect in order to improve my model and sort of accomplish the goal that I want with machine learning. And it's also, how do I leverage and utilize the data that I already have that's existing? How do I upload it? How do I label it? How can I utilize other metadata in order to create a machine learning model? So it's an interesting combination of things, but it's so use case dependent. So that's why it's really fun, because it changes every single time. Like keyword spotting, like you said, you need noise, you need samples of words that are not the keyword, and you need a ton of samples of the keyword. And that's a very, defined use case. But for any other thing, for image classification, that's sort of standard. But if I did a Doppler radar one, that could be a little weird. How do you label that data? How do you like visualize it and make a model out of it? So yeah, it changes every day and it's super fun.
How do you gather Doppler radar data? Like what is it running on?
So I actually did a blog post a few months ago. The Infineon has like a little board that has a Doppler radar chip on it, and they actually do a lot of the DSP signal processing on the chip specifically for it. So I actually collaborated with a engineer at Infineon to just pull the raw. It's sort of the processed raw data from the driver on the board into my application code. And they've got Arduino libraries and stuff. So I literally just pulled, there's Wikipedia articles about it, but Doppler radar in its base sense can be just laid down into two signals, I signal and a Q signal. And they just sort of, it's like sine waves, and they interact with each other to sort of just analyze different gestures that are happening in front of it. So then I pulled those IQ signals into Edge Impulse, and I made a little motion gesture model off of that.
With radar?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
So it's I could sort of see it using it for analyzing hand washing without having to do. You don't want to touch a device when you're hand washing, so you could use Doppler radar, for example.
I so frequently see like sonar used for that, but yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. Can you combine data types? This is more of a sort of random Edge Impulse question, but it came up for me. Like, can you do a model that combines, for example, radar data and like audio of the water flowing or whatever?
So yeah, that's actually a big topic that our team has been working on. That's sort of called sensor fusion, when you take different types of sensors and sort of combine them together to create a model that's analyzing, sensors at this point and seeing what that data looks like there, and getting whatever, training your model on whatever you want to analyze. So yeah, our tech team is actually working on that right now. We have a few people who are doing specific sensor fusion examples, and we'll actually, this might be, maybe I shouldn't talk about this, but we'll actually be sort of integrating a sensor fusion built-in option in the studio. So stay tuned for that.
Yes, awesome. Love to hear about stuff that's coming up. Oh, wow.
Sneak preview.
So tell us about this other new thing that you've got coming up, the EON Tuner, the AutoML 2.
So this is a brand new feature that we just released like a week and a half ago. It is completely free for all of our Edge Impulse Studio users to use. It is essentially AutoML. It is, and it's just for audio right now, but we'll be adding support for other types of sensor data in the future. But for things like keyword spotting or analyzing non-human voice audio, what the EON Tuner does is, there's tons of parameters that you can input into your DSP functions and neural network layers. There's tons of different layers, and there's tons of different parameter options. Like, how do you know what to type in order to get the highest performing accuracy on your specific data set? What the EON Tuner does is it takes all of your data, runs it through an algorithm, and then spits out hundreds of different combinations of DSP parameters and neural network layers, and analyzes those and sees, based on these combinations of parameters and layers, what is the accuracy based on my training or validation set. So there'll be a huge matrix of a bunch of different combinations, and it's really, really interesting to see because we have a bunch of different pre-written DSP blocks, but sometimes it uses blocks and a combination of layers that I would have never thought about before, because I'm not a machine learning expert. So when I'm looking at doing my machine learning design in the studio, I'm sort of just basing it off of the limited knowledge that I know. So the EON Tuner is going to help our users just completely expand their breadth of knowledge of the embedded ML space, and how do you use TinyML and leveraging everything that TensorFlow has to offer in Visual Studio.
Can you tell us, so for those who may not know, DSP is digital signal processing, typically used with sender data, but also audio data, very frequently in music, for stuff, and doing like radio and whatnot. You said that sometimes you come across unexpected combinations that it spits out of DSP blocks. Do you have an example you can share?
There was this one, I don't have it off the top of my head, but there was this one keyword spotting tuner result that I saw that was just like 1D convolution, it was like 8 layers of 1D convolutions, if you know anything about machine learning architecture. But it was just like 8 of those layers on top of each other. And then on the last one, it was like dense and then flattened. And I was like, I've never done that combination of layers before, ever. I sort of can wrap my head around what the math is doing, but yeah, it's essentially just a bunch of mathematical functions on top of each other. So I guess it makes sense.
That's super cool. What are your favorite projects that you've seen people use Edge Impulse for on the Spresense or on other boards?
Well, I'm kind of biased to thing that involves cats, because I'm kind of like a cat. I'm a cat mom. So I can't remember who did it, but someone had made a model to analyze different cat meows. And basically sort of using machine learning to be like, this is my cat's meow when it's hungry, and this is my cat's meow when it wants attention or wants to be let outside. So I love that kind of stuff. You can also do like image classification of analyzing whether, the animal in front of your camera is a dog or a cat. So that's pretty cool. Those are my favorite, but obviously you can get really insane industrial examples, but I like the cute ones.
Well, this is one cool one that came by my friend David Groom, who did a similar type of thing, trying to analyze what a baby is trying to communicate based on the sounds the baby is making, and he tested it on his own child.
Oh, I saw this one. Already posted on our social media. It's so cool.
Yeah, I love that people are doing the same thing for cats.
Yeah, I know. I think it's valuable to understand what your nonverbal human and non-humans are trying to communicate.
We have another example from Carlos, who's in the chat, who's talking about Big Cat Brother as a jaguar protection project. That's super cool.
Awesome.
Huh, wow. That is in the YouTube chat. So folks, if you're curious, you can go check it out and talk to Carlos. So we've talked about sort of tips for beginners and generally how to use Edge Impulse, but if you've been using it for a while, what is you as an insider have maybe some pro tips? Like, what are some secret things that people might not know about, features that maybe don't get talked about or used as much but are still like buried in there, or secret things that people could do to supercharge their models?
Part of my job, for sure. Well, one of my favorite parts is making sure people know about these secret things, because there was a couple things before, but I've since written blog posts on them. We have sort of this like hidden feature that allows our users to create a collaborative, crowdsourced keyword spotting data set. You can basically send a QR code to your peers and have them take recordings of their voice saying the keyword, and it automatically uploads their voice sample to your Edge Impulse project. And it automatically also, so say you send the QR code to have them take 1 minute of data of them saying the keyword over and over, like hello, hello, hello. the Edge Impulse web application, the keyword collector, takes that 1 minute sample, uploads it all to Edge Impulse, and then Edge Impulse automatically splits up that 1 minute sample into 1 second subsamples of just where the keywords are located in that full length. So it's pretty interesting. I have a blog post about it, but it makes unbiased data collection super, super easy, especially for keyword spotting. In the past, you'd have to bring a microphone to your neighbor's house and have them, you bring your laptop and record all of these keywords. And now it's just as simple as, hey man, can you go on your phone and record yourself saying this word for a minute or two, and I'll upload it to my project.
You haven't been able to see me quietly freaking out about this. This is so cool.
I'm so glad to hear it, because we've had it in the tool for a while. It was just really unknown because we would primarily only use it for STEM conferences and things that we wanted to get the audience sort of like collaborated into. But why not just let the whole world use it? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I make these companion robots, and they are designed to interact with people, right? And I want to be able to, for example, I'm going to wear Fenrir out on my shoulder, and I want people to be able to say his name and he'll respond, or like Archimedes up there. And if I train it on just my voice, obviously it's not going to work as well as if you have a whole bunch of different voices saying their names. And so the fact that this is automated is like so exciting.
It's really, really cool.
Amazing.
And it's so valuable because there's a lot of machine learning models that are trained in the world right now that are using only, data or voices from one culture, from like Americans, and it's not going to work on people with a French accent, for example. So this is going to really solve a lot of bias issues in the embedded ML space.
That's a great point, because, for example, Archimedes is kind of a weird name, and people definitely, it has a lot of different places for people to pronounce it differently, like Archimedes, like with it, different vowels, or like some people say Archie, and like, and people who don't have the same kind of R's in their language, like Archimedes or something like that, all these different variations could be chapters. I love that.
Yeah.
Even just accents,
Accents and female voices are higher pitched than male voices, so there's a lot in there.
Oh yeah, and I imagine you get into that with the digital signal processing as well, as like being able to capture both of those.
Yep.
Totally getting into my area nerdery. We need to like zoom out a little bit again. Okay, I think we've covered most of the things that we're intended to talk about, and now I'm curious. So for kids who are in schools now who maybe don't have access to all of this stuff, how do you think we can better serve them? Obviously, Edge Impulse is largely about making this stuff more democratized, making it accessible for people. And part of what you're doing with that is making it so, for example, the microbit is designed for education. The Arduino Nano 33 billion is pretty accessible. You're doing this giveaway with Spresense boards so that people can join the webinar and learn how to use it. Are there any other ways that you think we can help this happen?
Well, I mean, Edge Impulse, in terms of embedded machine learning itself, like I said, you don't need a microcontroller at all to get started building models and collecting data. You can even deploy it directly to your phone. You can use it on your laptop. And then when you're ready to get a microcontroller and start doing C++ development, you also have that option as well with that same model that you built for your phone. So we're making it really easy that way. But in terms of like people in school, I guess just find something that you're passionate about, like animal conservation, or when I was in high school, I was really interested in I played flute in the marching band, so maybe I could have like made a model off of analyzing different aspects of playing my instrument or other people in the band. Just take what you're already interested in and see how you can apply. And that's specifically about embedded machine learning, but I think it's true for any other space too. Take what you're passionate about and try to make something technical out of it.
Love it. This reminds me so much of this scene from Willy Wonka where he's got this lock on a door that this little piano pops out and he plays this like little musical riff, and the mom is like, Rachmaninoff. It looks like you know this one as well.
I totally forgot about that scene. That's amazing.
I feel like that'd be an amazing way to like combine like the keyword. It's almost like keyword spotting, really.
Ooh, yeah. Instead with a musical. Ooh. That's a good idea.
I was trying to do it with whistling, but I'm no good at whistling.
I have a piccolo. That could be so fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Ideas.
Yes. Cool. Is there anything else you'd like to throw in there before we wrap up? I feel like you have such a depth of experience, and from different places as well. Like you're coming from the hardware side and the software side, and your experiences talking with people directly. I'd really love to see if you, it's kind of putting you on the spot though.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to, like, I guess I could say, in order to get into like the technical area, my first internship wasn't even software engineering at all. So for anyone that's watching this that doesn't know how to code or anything, my first internship was actually just straight up project management. I worked on like a software engineering team at Arm, helping do like burn down charts and analyzing the critical path for an entire summer. And then when I was there at Arm, I just did a lot of networking in order to get into the IoT group, where I met Zach and Jan and everyone else at Arm that now works at Edge Impulse. And so I just wanted to say, it's like, don't let coding interviews discourage you, because the people that want to work with you will find a way to help get there. And my first interview to get my IoT job was actually like create a project using Arm Mbed. And so that was really fun. It wasn't as stressful as like a 4-hour, analyze this algorithm and debug and what is it going to print and what's on the stack, what's on the heap, like, no. So I just want to sort of briefly mention that. And I want, more women to be in tech. So I'm excited to be going to more conferences and just sort of spreading the word that, the embedded ML and IoT and any other type of software engineering isn't as intimidating as it may seem. And what was else with your other questions? Oh, I have a few things to plug as well. We have Edge Impulse has a conference coming up, a virtual conference called Edge Impulse Imagine, where we have an insane lineup of industry leaders in the embedded ML space that are coming to do workshops and webinars and tech talks. And I think I'm doing a workshop too, so you can come see me again. But it's completely free, and we're having people from insane companies like Arduino, Arm, Google, Harvard, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Aura, and even more. Aura, the wearables company. Yay, RG, thank you. So that's coming up on September 29th through October 1st, and it's all virtual and it's free. So come join us. And what else did you ask?
Well, it was sort of a spew of lots of things. I think I'm also going to be involved in Imagine somehow, either like a panel or something. Super excited for that.
I'm really excited. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I totally forgot. There's so many things going on.
There is. So I have a webinar with Sony and you guys in a couple weeks, and that'll be about the Spresense. Yeah.
I'm also just curious, what was your project that you made for Mbed?
Oh, for my interview for Arm Mbed, I actually made a Simon Says program using, I made like a little enclosure for it out of an iPhone box. And it was it was like a Nordic board or something. I thought maybe I did it on the microbit, but I didn't. It was like on a Nordic board, and I used a bunch of Seed Studio shield buttons, and I basically just like made this super messy 200-line program of all the different combinations of Simon Says, and like doing random number generators to do like the sequences. and then I wrote like a bunch of documentation on it. And in the Arm Mbed, they have like if anyone knows about Arm Mbed, they have on mbed.com, there's like a whole repository of different ways that you can upload your code and showcase it. There's like repos and community. And so, yeah, I did a lot of forum support for Arm Mbed based off of that Simon Says project, which was really basic, but also really fun.
And that also seems like a great way for people to get into this stuff, which is that, doing documentation is something that you always need at companies. And it's something where you don't have to generate anything. You can just like contribute in a really real way, especially to, getting people into helping people get started in the tech space, as well as like getting into it yourself.
And it's so it's so valuable when you're just starting to do technical documentation too, because you have fresh eyes of, like, I've been doing this for years now. So when I encounter an issue, I don't even think twice. I just fix it. But
Yeah.
as with someone with new eyes and you experience an issue and you're spending hours trying to figure out how to fix it, write that down and upload it somewhere, because that technical documentation just increases the availability of and the experience for everyone. And you know, you can write it on your own technical blog or on Stack Overflow, and you can help out a lot of people. And those technical documentation skills are super, super valuable, because a lot of software engineers don't want to write technical documentation because it's all up here and they don't want to, it's like takes too much time to write it all down. So
totally. And that's kind of what, obviously I care about this because that's sort of what our whole site is, you know, shaped around. But also as someone who's working at a company, you have so much access to the developers, and you can be like, hey, why is this way? Or like, could we change this? Or even just like get the best way to do something, and you can put that into the world. You have like the power.
Yeah, you literally, with the documentation is almost the face of the product and the face of the company. And with on Hackster, it's like that's all of the content is technical documentation, right? So, you know, if you're into that and you want to be, you know, front and center in that world, I definitely recommend, you know, making your own project, writing down all the technical troubleshooting steps, you know, reviewing, you know, your experience with your process from end to end. That's all of that is really valuable information, and it helps people, like, you know, if there's an issue with the Hackster website, it helps you. Or if there's an issue with, you know, our developer experience on the studio, like maybe the flow doesn't make as much sense, writing that information down and sending it to us is super valuable.
Amazing. So we have, let's just go really quick through all the things we talked about. We've got this supercharge your products. I keep saying projects because that's what I do. Products webinar in a couple of weeks here, and you're doing that. Awesome. There's another webinar coming up from Sony that is also free, that is just with NutX, teaching you how to use the 8 cores on the on the Spresense board. We have the EON Tuner AutoML tool. We have Imagine coming up at the end of September and the beginning of October. Very exciting. It looks like RG might be doing something too. Sorry, what?
I'm really looking forward to that. It's gonna be so fun.
Yeah. Look at all,
like,
these
look
cool
at all
people.
those names. That's an insane amount of cool
yeah,
people.
Particle on there. Yeah. We have the Edge Impulse blog. I thought I'd link to that directly because, as you say, that's a great place to get all those tips and things, info about things that you might not have known existed as part of Edge Impulse. I'm so excited that we talked about that keyword spotting thing because, oh, killer.
Yeah, I don't want there to be any insider secrets, honestly, about Edge Impulse. So I'm just going to brain dump it all into this blog. So follow us there.
Brilliant. People can follow Jenny directly on Twitter at Jenny M. Plunkett. We'll put that link in the description. You can find both Edge Impulse and Sony on Hackster, and then you can have just look at what other people have built with it. Maybe answer some other questions about how specifically to do things on other oh my gosh! He did another version of the baby monitor with
awesome.
Okay, and you can upload your own projects, of course. We'll see you on there next time. And yeah, I guess I pulled up the Elephant Edge tracker as well. But yeah, these are the main things. You can find this at Hackster.io/events. Oh, that was a lot.
That was awesome. I couldn't have done that.
There's so much cool stuff coming up. It's so exciting. And y'all are like going to the top. Thank you so much for joining me
here, for sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll catch you next week. Ciao.
Bye.